range to an extent. We
I
have a quarter of an acre as our backyard.
got used to it.
Make like a giant, like half an acre cube mesh and just put chickens in there and just let them eat everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're really good about that, and like it's healthier for them to because now they're omnivores. They need to eat bugs. They don't need to just eat chicken feed, you know. Turns out right. Hey, folks! It is January the 25th, and so today we're continuing on with ending Unit 1, which has to do with colonial America. We were just talking and all that good stuff. There are so many books about this.
Oh yes, good stuff.
Lots of popular books about it. What's funny is I have a biography here of one of the judges, a guy named Judge Sawwell, who was one of the judges presiding over the witch trials. And it's funny because after the trials are over, the community is really embarrassed. They're like, wow, yeah, we kind of got caught up into things and we didn't think it through. We were just so scared and excited, you know, like we were fooled, you know. It's just like they're like, oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me.
That's never happened before, like in today's modern culture. Ever.
Well, I mean, you can at least credit him with this, right? He just didn't like take it to his grave. No, we were right. She was riding on a broomstick.
She was riding on a broomstick. I saw it with my own eyes.
So yeah, I mean, you know, it's good to admit your mistakes. You know, if you're wrong, which is something that they say is like completely out of politics today, you can at least admit you're wrong. Yeah, because you know, and people treat it as an admission to guilt. I mean, and I guess it can be, but you know, I think we should move beyond that if we're going to be a healthy society. All right. So
I think we should too, and that is a very good piece of advice, Mr. Wade.
Hooray! Yay me! All right, I quit. I've done my job. All right, Salem witch trials. In 1690, Salem, Massachusetts, several young girls showed violent fits and blamed this distress on West Indian slave named Tituba. As a result, more than 100 men, women, and children were put on trial for witchcraft. Though the stake was not used in their cases, it was used by their European and British counterparts in their witch trials before this, their witch craze. There, of course, will be casualties, people perishing in prison and such things like that. There's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of books written about this, and there's historians with different takes on it from different historical perspectives, or what you might say is like historiographical perspectives. So historiography is the study of how people study history. And what that means, everybody's got their own theories on how things work. And so some people say that there's some very bored girls who are looking for a way to kind of like show out and get attention, maybe have fun. The Puritan lifestyle was extremely drab. Girls had no rights, you know, and of course, a lot of kids didn't. One little thing about Puritans is that early on in their colonies, what Pilgrims and Puritans would do is they really didn't want to spoil their children. Austerity, having like a very disciplined spiritually and physically and mentally life was important to salvation. So you don't want to spoil a kid. And who spoils kids? Their parents. So how do you fix that? You
don't have parents.
No, you trade kids. Kind of. It's like
Let's raise
so you trade kids. So like every year or so, you would take your kids and you'd be like, hey, Farmer Bob, will you raise my kids? Farmer John, I'll raise yours this year. And you just trade them out. That way you don't care about them. You just, and you can like them or whatever, you know, and kind of just browbeat them in a way where you're not going to be overly affectionate and spoil them.
What about the wall?
Well, I mean, of course, they would like babies that weren't weaned yet. You know, you would keep those, you know, and stuff like that. But well, I mean, ideas of child rearing was very different back then, right? I mean, this is going to be around the time period when you're going to have Rousseau is going to start changing a lot of people's minds on children. Now, Rousseau may have started a lot of bad things, and I'm not going to get into that.
Why?
He's a French philosopher. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It comes up with the idea of things like the innate innocence and beauty of just youth and childhood and how that needs to be nurtured and cared for. It's kind of a foreign concept for a lot of British and European people. For example, the guy who founded the Methodist Church, his wife, I forgot her name, she used to write on child rearing. And one belief of hers was you've got to make sure that babies stop crying because they'll grow up as unbroken and spoiled. So if a child cried, she would like neglect it or punish it, even if it was a baby, right? And if you do it
And it's
enough,
just gonna
they'll stop
cry
crying.
more.
Yeah, we now know today that can cause like significant trauma, But the idea was essentially to break their will so that they be more obedient, and therefore, if they're obedient to you, a good person, they'll be on the right track to be a good person and susceptible for salvation and stuff. So again, child rearing, like it sounds cruel to us, but of course you gotta remember back then people didn't like rarely married for love and stuff like that. You married because your parents told you to, So, and of course some of that stuff goes on today, but it was more normal back then. So, all right, so moving on. So, we talked about there's a lot of lawlessness. A lot of it's the Old West, especially if you've lived away from towns. So if you're going to have the institution of essentially kind of militia, but more or less like vigilante groups like the Regulators. These are frontier settlers in the Carolinas. Remember, this is one of our later colonies. Or the officials kind of don't want to be there. They're just trying to milk some profits and go make their own little kind of like manor, be rich there. The North Carolina Regulators were suppressed by British rebellion against the British government. No, they're not. But they want them to do things like, manage the mail